is time to predict the 2024 NRL Finals bracket. If you want an idea of how I feel about each team overall, go check out yesterday's video and send me them views so I can win some cash. Now, for context, this is my go-to video. Now, I've never gotten the grand final right, but my premiership prediction has come true from every finals prediction I have done here on the YouTube. So hopefully we can go 5 for 5. Now, we will spend a bit more time on week 1 because I'm not going to do a whole finals bracket predictions and then do my finals week 1 predictions. Not because I'm prioritizing content, but because I prioritize efficiency because I am an efficiency god. But I've got my bracket in front of me. I'm going to talk you through it. As always, ladies and gentlemen, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet already. Leave a comment down below. Let me know if I'm an idiot or a rugby league genius. And let's kick things off with one of the most important games for both of these clubs in recent memory, because the Penrith Panthers, they are on a quest to make rugby league history. Going for the historic four-peat, they will welcome back their god, Nathan Cleary. As for the Roosters, well, we all know that they cannot beat a top 4 team to save their own grandmother's life. They will be without Sammy Walker and Brandon Smith. I'm not sure if Radley will be back or not. I'm just going to assume he isn't. But as much as the Roosters may be on the back foot and they're going to be criticised all week for this horrible record against the top teams in this competition, surprise, surprise, the Penrith Panthers actually seem to be human. They've been slowing down the past couple of weeks. For the first time in what feels like bloody years, they lost back-to-back when they dropped to the Raiders, and the week before they lost that minor premiership showdown with the Melbourne Storm. Now, that could also be because the Penrith Panthers at this point would just be so over regular season footy, because this is where they do their best work. This is where Ivan Cleary has gotten them up, and also, maybe they've just been waiting for Nathan Cleary to come back, and as good as they've been without him, he's still probably the best player in the world, so when he comes back in, they're going to be fit and firing. There are some questions around Dylan Edwards, but I do think that the Sydney Roosters, without Sammy Walker especially, are going to have to go through the middle of Penrith, which is something no team has done for years. And I do worry about the kicking game of Sandon Smith and Luke Keary, because the Roosters have the firepower to blow all of these teams off the park in the bottom part of the 8, and especially the lower tier teams. But against Penrith and against the Storm, it's almost like they try to play a grindy style of footy and they can't get through. Without Sam Walker, I'm not sure they're going to have as much firepower. That firepower they've obviously got in spades between Dom Young, Joey Suaalii, Joey Manu, and James Tedesco has played probably the best year of his career since 2019. So for me, this will come down to how well Luke Keary can go up against Nathan Cleary. And obviously, we're all expecting Nathan Cleary to probably win this one by knockout, but it's going to be a huge game for the Roosters halves. Whether they can kick to corners, whether they can get into a grind and get on the front foot, that is the big question, because they haven't been able to do it for some time. I also think this game is huge because it puts you on the good side of the draw if you win, whereas if you lose, I think the loser of this is at the biggest fault of going out in straight sets, mainly because of Penrith. They've obviously got those injuries to Cleary and Edwards, and another week off could really help those boys. Also, just give them a freshen up, whereas the Roosters, I think having a week off could really help those combinations. But the Roosters just can't beat these top teams, and they're going up against a team who has made this their whole entire DNA, winning the big games. Nathan Cleary, he's the best club footballer in the world for a reason. So until I see it from the Roosters, I'm sorry, Chookies fans, I'm going to have to take the Penrith Panthers. The next qualifying final, the Melbourne Storm, the best team of all year, the minor premiers. Can you honestly just bugger off? No one cares about you, Melbourne. They're taking on the Cronulla Sharks, and dare I say, this is the best the Sharks have looked going into a final series, and they've done it with arguably most of their key players out. Now, it is so much of a concern. The Cronulla Sharks have been in every final series since 2017 bar 2021, and the last finals game that they won was in 2018, which funnily enough was against the baby Penrith Panthers. But I do think a Saturday Arvo, yes, it is in Melbourne, but they've already done it this year. I think that this is the Cronulla Sharks' best chance to get a win. They will be coming off a short turnaround, and of course the Melbourne Storm, well, they're well rested and they are absolutely frothing at the prospect of going straight to a preliminary final. They've been the best team all year, and we're still waiting for them to take the next step, as I said in my rankings video yesterday. I think if the Sharks can get on the front foot early and hang on to a lead like they did back at the beginning of the year when they beat Melbourne in Melbourne, it's how they get the job done. But if this game is close, my big concern with the Sharks is they're just lacking a superstar, and unfortunately I haven't seen many of these Sharks boys deliver in the big moments. moments. Like I said, they're the most balanced team in the entire competition, which is why with their major advantage in the forwards, especially with a guy like Tommy Hazelton, who just went to Brookie Oval and dominated Manly, I think that is where they can win this game. Jerome Hughes, Cameron Munster, Harry Grant, Ryan Papenhuyzen, all those guys are capable of winning in the big moments. They've been the best team all year, and the Cronulla Sharks in finals games love to not win. So I'm going to take the Melbourne Storm. Saturday night, the Cowboys, they are hosting the Newcastle Knights. Kalen Ponga returns to haunt the club that let him go for massive money all those years ago. It's quite funny, this one, because the Cowboys are not a top 5 side for me, it feels like, but yet they've somehow put themselves in this position, mainly thanks to a favourable draw and a couple cheap wins over big teams during the Origin period, and of course beating Melbourne 2 weeks ago. But in saying that, it does feel like they deserve to be here, as the Newcastle Knights might be one of the most mid-finals teams of all time. I can't believe they got here. I didn't have them in top 8 contention at all a few weeks ago, but here they are, and it's actually quite an incredible effort from Adam O'Brien, considering it feels like they're trying to shop all those players. He's had Kalen Ponga out for most of the year, and his halves combinations have been all over the rugby league shop. I am worried about this game for the Newcastle Knights. I do give them a big shot than most people are expecting, mainly because of the rugby league script. And what I mean by that is, when the NRL, wouldn't it be such a great story if Kalen Ponga went back to knock off the North Queensland Cowboys? And to be honest, the Cowboys, they don't have the best defensive system, so a guy like Kalen Ponga could easily have a day out. And the best part about this new Newcastle Knights halves combination, which they got at the moment, because they know how to get the ball to Kalen Ponga. But the Knights, really, the last run they've gone on to make the 8 has been built on defense, and I'm not just sure how many points that they can score going up against the firepower of the Cowboys. So for me, while it's cliche, I think the Knights have to get on the front foot so they can give Kalen Ponga the ball. They need to dominate pretty much all aspects of the game to try and shut down any attack from the Cowboys, because the Cowboys, well, they can score from any fast play the ball all over the field. So as much as a part of me really believes that, knowing how the NRL and sport works, that Kalen Ponga is going to produce a miracle and get the Newcastle Knights to win here, I feel like I'm going to be so stupid if I don't tip the Cowboys. And finally, the match of the round, the second last Sunday Arvo game of the year, the last one until the grand final, and it's at Accor Stadium. It is the People's Grand Final. It is the Bulldogs taking on Manly. It feels like the Doggies do not deserve to go out week 1, and I can't believe they're capitulating at this time of year. Whereas Manly, to me, it feels like they should be a lot better than 7th, mainly because they've been beating the top teams and then blowing leads with getting sin bin and doing stupid stuff when they've been playing the bottom team. And I know what we're going to get from Manly in this game, because this is what they've done all season. Granted, the Sharks are a good team and give Manly their biggest loss of the season, but Manly love a good bounce back. They love getting complacent after a big win losing, then coming back to win a big game. And Manly usually play to the level of the opposition. The Doggies, Cameron Cirello has to find confidence, and he has to find it quickly. To be honest, I think the Doggies will be up for this game. They've got so much to play for. First finals game in 8 years. And I think Cirello will have a game plan, because he is a brilliant coach, and maybe he just kept things in the back pocket 2 weeks ago. So it will be interesting to see how differently these teams approached in that game that we saw a fortnight ago. I think both of these teams at their best, despite how good the Doggies were, they have struggled against the top 8 teams this year, and I think on paper Manly should blitz them. But I do think the Doggies will show up, and the Doggies will want to make this a fight. They want to make this a grind, and that is where Manly are so vulnerable. But if Manly can spread the ball, not make any errors, and just basically defend that Doggies left edge, if Garrick Cheza and Ola Kawatu can do their job there, then they should get the W. Tommy Turbo's on fire. I mean, Manly just have so much more firepower. Again, it's like a couple of weeks ago. It'll come down to the Dogs' defense versus Manly's attack, and then, of course, Manly's ability to defend those errors when they're coming out of their own end. I do think that this is the game out of the 2 elimination finals where I do think the team that wins can go on a little bit of a run. So I'm obviously tipping Manly, completely biased here, but I do think that they're the strongest chance of pulling off an upset in the first week of finals, even though the Doggies definitely don't deserve to go out week 1. So there is my first week of finals. Now, straight up from this point onwards, we may be going over these games again in the next couple of weeks with more information, or, knowing my track record, I'll probably never have to predict these games again, because this week's finals games will be Panthers versus the Bulldogs, and there'll be Melbourne versus the Knights. But in the Paddy G universe, this is what we have. We have the Sharks taking on the North Queensland Cowboys, and I'm actually going to back the Cronulla Sharks to finally get their first win. Just don't know the Cowboys are going to turn up, especially in Sydney. Now, I know they won that finals game a few years ago, but I think this is a great matchup for the Sharks. I know they're going to have to win a finals game at some point. And honestly, I just feel like an idiot if I didn't tip them to win this game because they do deserve it. They've played great all year, and I'm hoping that it's a big game from Nico Hines. So I do have the Sharks going to a prelim final for the first time since 2018. And then we've got the battle of the rich birds. Eagles and Chookies at what will be a packed Allianz Stadium. They're 1-1 across the season. And the beautiful thing with the Peninsula boys is that they love turning it on against teams where they know they have to turn it on. So you know what? Bias tip again, I'm going to go with Manly. I think they've got the better fullback, which is the Roosters' arguably best position, especially without Sammy Walker and Brandon Smith. I think they've got the better halves combination. The back line, you probably give the edge to the Roosters, and that's how they torched them at Allianz a couple of months ago when they beat them there. But if Manly's forward pack can just do a job, I think Matt Lodge is a big inclusion at this time of year, especially going against those top-tier forward pack. And with the experience of DCE, Brooks will be a big question mark, but I just think with him, with Turbo, with Jake Trbojevic in the middle, that Manly can get the job done against another one of the top teams that they've loved to beat throughout the last couple of years. I wouldn't be so confident on that tip if Sammy Walker was playing, because I think Sam Walker is the perfect halfback to go up against a team like Manly. But again, this is my YouTube video, so if you've got a problem, then make your own. So my prelim finals, we have the Penrith Panthers taking on the Sharks. And again, I think the Sharks' fairy tale run, I say that they probably should make a prelim because they're top four, but I do think it comes to an end here. I think the Penrith Panthers make it back to the grand final, and then the Melbourne Storm take on the older rival, the Manly Seagulls, and go to Melbourne, where they absolutely love to play rugby league football. And to be honest, I could see Manly winning this game, because if any team has made a habit out of beating Bellamy and beating Melbourne and Melbourne, it is the Manly Sea Eagles. And I think it's a great matchup for them, because Melbourne don't have the biggest forward pack outside of Nelson, which is Manly's biggest Achilles heel. And it would be great for one of the great finals games, because they both love to shift the ball. They've both got superstar players all over the field between Turbo, Ches, Munster, Hughes. So I do think that would be one of the great finals games. And I do think Manly have the cattle to beat Melbourne in Melbourne. Now, it just depends at this point if Manly can get up for 3 games in a row, because to be honest, I backed them over the Roosters and Melbourne more than I do the Bulldogs, because that sums up their year. And I think the Bulldogs are a great matchup for both the Roosters and the Storm as well. So that's why I think that the winner of that game can go on a pretty deep finals run. And the only reason I'm not tipping Manly is because I know you guys will grill me in the comments, but guess what? I don't care. So I'm going to tip Manly. Therefore, my grand finals, Penrith and Manly, and this is where the fairy tale would come to an end. I do think the Penrith Panthers will get that 4-peat. I just think that they know this is the last dance. I think Ivan Cleary is going to kick them into gear, and as much as we want to say they're so good without Nathan Cleary, it's concerning. They still are bringing back the best play in the world. Now, I do think that they would probably bully Manly in the grand final, despite what I say about Manly being the top teams, and they did smash them earlier this year at Brookie. I do think the Melbourne Storm, who are obviously 2-0 over the Penrith Panthers already, would be the harder matchup. So I do think that it's between those two to who wins the comp. I think it's the Penrith Panthers and the Melbourne Storm. That probably would be the fairest grand final, but boring, and this is my video. So I do think I'm going to pray, Rugby League praying what could be Cherry Evans' final series, that Manly make it all the way and do what they've done all year, and that is beat on the big teams now that it counts. But honestly, I just can't see them beating Penrith, because despite Manly blitzing them at Brookie this year, a grand final where Penrith have been there before and know what it takes better than they probably know their significant others, there's just no way I'm not backing the team going for a 4-peat at this point in time, especially with Luai moving on, with Fisher Harris moving on, 2 of the most important players of this dynasty. I'm tipping Penrith to go all the way, whether they play the Storm or Manly in the grand final. Let's be honest, who really cares? But there is my finals bracket. But my week 1 predictions, I've got Penrith beating the Chooks, the Storm beating the Sharks, the Cowboys beating the Knights, and Manly defeating the Dogs. Let me know what changes you would make from either that first week of finals or my entire bracket, and honestly, they're going to come hand in hand. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet already, because we got finals footy to cover, and there is no better time of year. Unless you're a team who didn't make the finals, and well, you better pick a new team, because you suck.